On June 5, 2018, Crystal Kaiser, a 17-year-old high school student from Milwaukee, walked into a man's house. He was 34 years old. She pulled out a gun and shot him in the head. Then she set the place on fire. After that, she drove off in his car. It looked like a planned incident at first, but what really happened was more troubling. Crystal was born on January 20th, 2000, and grew up in Milwaukee. Her home life was tough. Money was tight. She lived with her mom, Crystal, and her siblings. Resources were scarce. Protection was almost non-existent. Friends and family say she seemed upset and on edge long before this day. In school, she stayed mostly silent. Teachers called her quiet but sharp. She never caused trouble. Still, something weighed on her. She carried a burden that no teen should have to carry. The man she shot was Randall P. Volar III. He lived in Kenosha and worked in tech. On the surface, he seemed normal. In secret, he preyed on young girls. He offered gifts, rides, fast food, even attention. He used those things to pull them in. Then he filmed them and used the footage to control them. Crystal met him online when she was 16. He showered her with treats at first. Then he isolated her from everyone else. By the time she realized his real intent, it was too late. He had videos of her. He threatened to share them if she tried to leave. When police finally searched his home, they found videos of other underage girls in distress. Officers had been investigating for months, yet Volar stayed free. Why didn't they act sooner? Why was he left alone in that house? On June 5th, Crystal went back to that house. This time she carried a gun. She says he had grown more aggressive. She feared for her life. What happened next is still debated. Crystal says he tried to harm her again. In panic, she shot him. Then she started a fire, grabbed some cash, and left in his car. She was caught hours later. She faced charges for the fire, for taking his car, and for the shooting. Prosecutors said she planned it all. They pointed to old messages where she joked about ending him and driving off. Her defense said those messages showed desperation. They said she was trapped in a cycle of harm, not cold-blooded. Can someone really agree to something when they're forced into it? The law says no. Any minor in that situation is a victim. Consent doesn't count. Crystal was not there by choice. She had no escape. Her case went national. People spoke up for her. They said it shows how the system can fail young survivors. Wisconsin law lets victims of forced involvement use that experience as a defense. But the state argued her actions happened before any immediate threat. They said it was revenge, not self-defense. In 2022, Wisconsin's top court ruled she could explain her history in court. That changed everything. Facing a life term, she chose a plea deal in 2023. She admitted to a lesser charge and got 11 years behind bars, plus 5 years on supervision. As of May 2025, Crystal is still serving her time in a Wisconsin facility. She could be free again in the early 2030s. Supporters are still pushing to bring her home sooner. Her story isn't finished. Next is a teenager with one chilling obsession: what it feels like to take a life. Alyssa Bamante was born on January 28, 1994, in Cole County, Missouri. Her parents, Michelle and Caesar Bustamante, were both teenagers at the time. They struggled with substance use and had repeated run-ins with the law. Her father ended up in prison after being charged with hurting someone. Her mother was in and out of treatment due to her addiction. In 2002, Alyssa and her 3 younger siblings were placed in the custody of their grandparents, Gary and Karen Brooke. The family lived in St. Martins, Missouri. Just a few houses down lived the Olton family. On the outside, it seemed like Alyssa was getting the stability she needed. She was smart and did well in school, but often lost interest in class. She attended the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and took part in youth group activities. From the outside, she looked like any other teenager, but behind closed doors, Alyssa was dealing with serious emotional struggles. She battled depression and often hurt herself. She also admitted to having dark thoughts and wanted to end her own life. At age 13, she tried to do just that. She survived and spent 10 days in the hospital. After that, she was given medication and started therapy. But the problems didn't go away. Then came October 21st, 2009. She convinced her 9-year-old neighbor, Elizabeth Olton, to follow her into the woods. She told Elizabeth they were just going to hang out. But once they were deep in the trees, Alyssa turned on her. She hurt Elizabeth badly, then left her there and covered her in a shallow hole she had dug days before. Why would a 15-year-old do something like that? Investigators searched for answers. What they found was even more disturbing. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't about rage. Alyssa admitted she did it because she wanted to know what it felt like to end someone's life. That was her reason. Afterward, she acted like nothing had happened. She even went to a church dance later that evening. No one noticed anything unusual, but that night, she wrote in her journal. Her entry revealed everything. She described what she had done in shocking detail. She said it felt amazing. She wrote about the moment when fear disappeared and how it changed something inside her. When Elizabeth was reported missing, a full search began. The town quickly got involved. Eventually, suspicion turned toward Alyssa. Investigators found one of the hidden graves she had dug. Then they found her journal. In an interview with police, Alyssa finally admitted what she had done. Her grandmother was in the room. She broke down as Alyssa confessed. Alyssa was first charged in juvenile court, but because of how serious the case was, it was moved to adult court. In January 2012, she accepted a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to second-degree charges of taking a life and an additional charge related to the weapon she used. The court sentenced her to life in prison with the chance for parole. She also received a separate 30-year sentence that would begin after the first. During her sentencing, Alyssa spoke to the judge and to Elizabeth's family. She said, "If I could give my life to get her back, I would." In 2024, she applied for parole. It was denied. A new law in Missouri now prevents people who are under 18 and convicted of second-degree charges from being released early. That means her sentence is permanent. If nothing changes, the earliest she can walk free is in the year 2059. She will be 65 years old. Today, Alyssa is still in prison at the Chillicothe Correctional Center in Missouri. Now, what could drive a 15-year-old to turn on her own father with a bat? Courtney Christine Scholhoff was born on December 27, 1987, in Washington, D.C. Her life started out like many others, but everything changed after her parents separated. She moved in with her dad, Stephen Scholhoff, and they lived in Altamonte Springs, Florida. Courtney went to Lyman High School for a while, but she didn't finish. She dropped out and was working toward getting her GED. Then came the moment that changed everything. At just 15 years old, Courtney met someone. His name was Michael Morin. He was 20. They crossed paths at a dog racetrack near her school. Michael wasn't exactly on a clean path. He was on probation for taking his father's car without permission. Courtney's dad, Stephen, didn't approve of the relationship. Not one bit. But that didn't stop Courtney. She kept seeing Michael anyway. Then came February 9th, 2004. That night, Stephen Scholhoff was found in his apartment. He had been hit multiple times with a Louisville Slugger baseball bat. After it happened, Courtney and Michael took Stephen's truck and drove 20 miles to a McDonald's in Orlando. But then, they returned to the apartment. It wasn't long before someone found out. Stephen's girlfriend, Elaine Book, came over and saw the scene. She immediately called 911. When police questioned Courtney, she had a story ready. She said Michael was the one who hurt her dad. She claimed it happened while she was out walking the dog. She also said Michael had threatened her, that if she called the police, he would come after her too. But Michael had a different version. He said Courtney had left the bat by the bedroom door for him. He claimed he blacked out and didn't fully remember what happened. Then came another twist. In a later interview, Courtney admitted something important. She said she had waited by the tennis court in the apartment complex while it happened. She also admitted she purposely left the bat by the door for Michael to find. Courtney's trial began on September 26, 2006. Prosecutors believed she had planned the whole thing, even if she wasn't the one who carried it out. Courtney didn't take the stand to defend herself. The very next day, the jury reached a verdict. She was found guilty of first-degree planning and involvement in the act. Because she was only 16 at the time, she couldn't get the maximum sentence. Instead, the judge sentenced her to life in prison with no chance of release. But what she said after the sentencing left the courtroom stunned. She stood up and said, "Your Honor, I would like to openly admit in court that Michael Morin is not the person who did this to my father. I was. So, I accept full responsibility. And I accept the verdict." Michael Morin's trial came next, in April 2007. He admitted to what happened. He said he regretted it. Courtney even testified in his defense. She told the court that she was the one responsible. But her words didn't change the outcome. Michael was also found guilty and sentenced to life in prison, without the possibility of release. Years later, in 2017, a major change in the law gave Courtney another chance. The U.S. Supreme Court decided that giving life sentences to teenagers with no chance of release was unconstitutional. So Courtney's sentence was reduced. She now has to serve 40 years instead. Next is the story of a 16-year-old who turned her mother's revolver on her own family. Carly Madison Gregg was born in Mississippi in 2009 to Kevin Gregg and Ashley Smiley. Her parents married in 2005 and later divorced. Kevin has spoken about past struggles with substance use and bipolar disorder. He denies any mistreatment of Carly. Ashley worked as a math teacher at Northwest Rankin High School. After the divorce, Ashley married Heath Smiley. He became Carly's stepfather. Family photos shared by Kevin show Carly as a young child. You see her smiling between her parents in some pictures. Other shots capture small moments from her early years. On March 19, 2023, everything changed. Ashley found vape pens in Carly's room. That discovery led to a heated argument. Later that day, Carly took her mother's .357 Magnum revolver. She fired 3 times. Ashley did not survive. What drove Carly to that moment? The same day, Carly texted Heath to ask him to come home. She planned another encounter. When he arrived, she fired again and grazed his shoulder. He fought the gun away from her and immediately called 911. Afterwards, Carly invited a friend into the house. She showed them her mother's body. Then she asked, "Have you ever seen someone who stopped breathing?" In court, Carly was tried as an adult. She faced charges of first-degree homicide, attempted harm of her stepfather, and interfering with evidence. Her defense said she was in a mental health crisis. They pointed to depression and hearing voices. The prosecution argued she planned every step. They highlighted the text message and an effort to hide a security camera after the shooting. After a week on the stand, the jury found her guilty on all counts. She received life in prison without the chance of release. A psychiatrist had testified that Carly showed signs of depression and heard voices. Yet the expert said she didn't meet the legal threshold for an insanity plea. As of May 2025, Carly is serving her sentence in a Mississippi facility. The next individual said prison made her feel happy and safe, more than home ever did. Why? Ashley Martinson was born on March 6, 1998, in the United States. She lived with her mother, Jennifer Ayers. Her stepfather, Thomas Tony Ayers, was also part of the household. Along with them were her 2 stepsisters and a half-sister. But her home life was far from normal. From the age of 9, Ashley said she was mistreated by one of her mother's boyfriends. She described both physical harm and inappropriate behavior. Her stepfather, Thomas Ayers, had a long record. It included convictions for holding someone against their will, mistreating others at home, and other aggressive acts. Jennifer Ayers, Ashley's mother, knew about the mistreatment, but she didn't step in to stop it. By the time Ashley turned 17, things had already spiraled out of control. On March 7, 2015, just one day after her birthday, an argument exploded in the house. Her parents had just found out she was dating a 22-year-old man named Ryan Sisko. They didn't just disapprove. They threatened to involve law enforcement. They also took away her phone and car keys. Ashley was furious. That same day, she made a post on Facebook. In it, she said she wanted to get rid of her stepfather. She then took one of his shotguns and brought it into her room. At first, she said she wanted to harm herself, but then Thomas Ayers started pounding on her door. That's when she fired, once in the neck, then again in the head. Her mother ran in after hearing the blasts. Ashley claimed Jennifer came at her with a sharp weapon. A struggle broke out. Ashley managed to take the weapon. Then she used it, over 30 times. After that, she turned her attention to her younger siblings. She didn't hurt them. Instead, she locked them in a room with snacks and juice. She told them it was a game. Then she left the house with Ryan Sisko. The two were found the very next day, March 8, 2015, in Indiana. Sisko wasn't charged, but he did face consequences for breaking parole. Ashley, on the other hand, was charged as an adult. She faced 2 counts of first-degree intentional harm, leading to the loss of their lives, and 1 count of unlawful confinement. At first, she pleaded not guilty, claiming she wasn't in a stable mental state. But later, in March 2016, she took a plea deal. She pleaded guilty. By June 2016, her sentence was final. She received 23 years in prison. After that, she would be under supervision for 17 more years. Ashley is now at Techita Correctional Institution in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. She has said she feels happy and safe there, words that reflect how unsafe she felt at home. While in prison, she earned her high school diploma. Her legal team didn't stop there. In June 2017, her lawyer filed a request to lower her sentence. They argued that her environment had left her unable to think clearly or make good decisions. But that request was denied 3 months later, in September. In 2019, the appeals court reviewed the case. They upheld her conviction. The next victim thought he was seeing his girlfriend. But what he walked into was a setup. Regina and Margaret DeFrancisco grew up in Chicago's Pilsen neighborhood. That area is known for its working-class roots and its vibrant Latino community. But their home life was unstable. They saw little parental guidance and often found themselves around people involved in wrongdoing. Regina, the older sister born around 1983, already had brushes with the law. She faced substance-related charges. That set a pattern for Margaret, born about a year later. What happened on June 6, 2000? Regina was 17. Margaret was 16. Regina's boyfriend, Oscar Velasquez, was a 22-year-old truck driver she'd been dating for 3 weeks. He didn't know what was coming. Regina asked him over to their place, promising a normal evening. But the sisters had plans of their own. Margaret held a .38 caliber semi-automatic pistol, supplied by their friend Veronica Garcia. When Oscar arrived, Margaret pulled the trigger. Oscar did not survive the fatal shot to the back of his head. What came next? The sisters took about $600 from his pockets. They wrapped Oscar's body in a tarp. Then they loaded it into his own Camaro Z28. They drove to a vacant lot. Nail polish remover became their accelerant. Flames rose around the tarp. An anonymous caller dialed 911 to report the blaze. Firefighters found only charred remains. Why did they do it? The main reason seems to be money. Regina knew Oscar had a new car and a steady income. She saw an opportunity. Some people also whispered about tension between Regina and Oscar. There were hints of mistreatment, but no proof ever came out in court. After that night, the sisters vanished. They slipped out of Chicago and went on the run. Their story caught national attention. TV shows like Unsolved Mysteries and America's Most Wanted put their faces on screen. Margaret was caught first on March 24, 2002, in Rockford, Illinois. A viewer tip led police right to her door. Regina stayed free a bit longer. She got stopped in Dallas, Texas on October 18, 2002. A routine traffic stop turned into a high-speed chase. Officers finally took her into custody and sent her back to Illinois. In July 2004, both sisters faced juries in separate trials. Regina was found guilty of felony homicide during a theft. On September 9, 2004, she received a 35-year sentence. Margaret's first trial ended without a verdict. In November 2004, she went back before a jury. That time, she was convicted of first-degree homicide and, on December 14, 2004, got 46 years. Veronica Garcia, the friend who supplied the gun, agreed to testify against them. In exchange, she took a plea deal for concealing a fatal act. She served 5 years. Today, both Regina and Margaret are serving time at Logan Correctional Center in Illinois. They have filed appeals, but none have succeeded. The next story started with a phone call and ended with a pit in Georgia. Tiffany Ann Cole was born on December 3, 1981, in South Carolina. She spent her childhood caring for her younger siblings. Her father was often unwell. Could that pressure have shaped her? She later struggled with addiction. People who knew her said she wasn't the same. Yet she never missed a day of work. Many described her as kind and helpful. Her family had known Carol and Reggie Sumner back in South Carolina. In March 2005, the Sumners moved to Jacksonville, Florida. They stayed in touch and even sold a car to Cole. Was it just a car sale? Or something deeper? On July 8, 2005, Cole, her partner Michael Jackson, and 2 others, Alan Wade and Bruce Nixon, put a chilling plan into action. They'd already dug a pit in Georgia. They arrived at the Sumners' home, claiming they needed to use the phone. Carol and Reggie let their guard down. Then the group forced them into a vehicle. They drove to that hidden pit. There, Carol and Reggie were left until they lost their lives. Did Cole stand beside that pit when it happened? Court documents say she wasn't at the gravesite for the final act, but she mapped out every detail. She joined in the forced removal and the theft. Could someone so involved really escape witnessing the worst? Authorities arrested Cole in July 2005. In 2007, a jury found her guilty on 2 counts of first-degree homicide, 2 counts of forced removal, and 2 counts of theft. The jury voted 9-3 for the harshest sentence. She received it. In 2016, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that Florida's sentencing method was unconstitutional in Hurst v. Florida. That decision sent Cole back to court. In August 2023, a new jury voted 10-2 for life in prison with no chance of release. Today, in May 2025, Tiffany Ann Cole remains at Lowell Correctional Institution in Florida. She will spend the rest of her days behind those walls, with no hope of ever walking free again. Shelia Eddy was born on September 28, 1995, in Morgantown, West Virginia. She was the only child of Tara Clendenin and Greg Eddy. Her parents split up when she was young. She lived mostly with her mother. Eddy went to University High School in Morgantown. She was friendly and joined a lot of activities there. Around age 8, she met Skylar Niece. They became close. Later, they made a third friend, Rachel Scholhoff. The 3 were inseparable. Then came the night that shook their town. On July 6, 2012, 16-year-old Skylar Niece slipped out of her house in Star City, West Virginia. She thought she was heading to meet friends. Security cameras captured her stepping into a car at about 12:30 a.m. The car held Eddy, Scholhoff, and Skylar. Where were they going? To a lonely spot in Greene County, Pennsylvania. What happened there changed everything. Eddy and Scholhoff struck Skylar. Her injuries proved fatal. They tried to hide what they had done. First, they dug. When that failed, they covered her with branches and left. Why would they do this? Their stated reason was chillingly simple. They no longer wanted Skylar in their circle. The plan was laid out beforehand. It was not an accident. At first, Eddy and Scholhoff played the part of worried friends. They joined the search parties. They offered comfort to Skylar's family. Months passed with no sign of her. Then Scholhoff confessed. She led authorities to Skylar's remains. Eddy was arrested and faced charges for first-degree homicide, taking against their will and plotting the act. She first pleaded not guilty. Later, she changed her plea. On January 24, 2014, Eddy admitted her role in the fatal incident. She received life in prison, with a chance at parole after 15 years. She showed no remorse in court. The judge spoke of the pain. Her actions caused the Niece family. Eddy now serves her sentence at Lakin Correctional Center in West Virginia. Her first chance for review comes in May 2028. Because of this case, West Virginia tightened its missing child alert system to speed up responses when young people vanish. But the girl the next victim once loved became the reason he never made it home. Amber Wright was born in 1995 in Marion County, Florida. She grew up in a modest home with her mother and her older brother, Kyle Hooper. The family lived in Summerfield. It's a small town where everyone knows each other. There weren't many things for young people to do there. Amber went to Bellevue High School. She was an average student. Her circle of friends was small, mostly her brother and a few close peers. Life at home felt unstable. Her mother struggled to keep a steady job. There was no father figure around. This lack of structure may have made Amber more open to bad influences as she got older. When Amber was 14, she started dating Seth Jackson. He was in her grade at Bellevue High. He was outgoing and dreamed of becoming a pro mixed martial artist. Their relationship was intense but brief. They broke up after a few months. Even so, they kept talking and arguing, both in person and on Facebook. Those arguments stirred up more trouble. Seth and Amber traded harsh words online. Tensions rose when Amber moved on and began dating Michael Bargo. Michael felt threatened by Seth. He was jealous and angry. In April 2011, that anger reached a peak. Michael was 18 and full of resentment. He teamed up with Amber, her brother Kyle, Justin Soto, and Charlie Ely. Together, they drew up a plan to get rid of Seth. On April 17, 2011, Amber reached out to Seth. She suggested they meet to clear the air. She asked him to come to Charlie Ely's house in Summerfield. Seth trusted her invitation and agreed. Once he arrived, the group sprang their trap. They beat him and shot him several times. He did not survive. Then they burned what was left in a fire pit. They put the ashes into paint buckets and dumped them into a nearby quarry. Why did Amber go along with such a plan? She faced strong peer pressure. Michael's influence was clear. Old anger toward Seth still lingered. All of this pushed her to take part. Seth was reported missing on April 18, 2011, when his parents couldn't reach him. Investigators found blood at Charlie's home. Neighbors and friends shared what they'd seen. The case broke open when James Havens, Michael's stepfather, came forward with what he knew. On April 21, 2011, authorities arrested Amber, Michael, Kyle, Justin, and Charlie. They were charged with first-degree taking a life and related offenses. Amber's trial began in 2012. Prosecutors said she set the fatal plan in motion by luring Seth to that meeting. She didn't pull the trigger, but her role was crucial. The jury agreed. They found her responsible, and she was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. In 2014, an appellate court overturned that verdict. It said her rights weren't explained properly during questioning. A new trial was ordered. At the retrial in 2016, the court again found her responsible. She received the same life sentence. Did the retrial shift how people saw her? Not really. It confirmed her part in what happened. Her age at the time didn't change how the court viewed her actions. As of 2025, Amber Wright is 29 years old. She remains in a Florida correctional facility. She hasn't made any public statements or offered new details about why she did it. But the last story? This one will stick with you forever. Christine Marie Powia was born on March 31, 1986, in Long Island, New York. From the very beginning, her life was filled with painful challenges. When she was just 2 years old, her father passed away after a construction site incident. Things got worse. Her mother, Lori, began using substances and couldn't take care of Christine or her older brother anymore. Because of that, both children were taken in by their maternal grandparents. Christine started kindergarten while living with her grandparents. Around this time, she was diagnosed with alopecia. The condition caused her to lose her hair. She wore wigs and thick glasses due to vision issues. Kids at school picked on her for it. The constant bullying made her feel alone and unwanted. Her confidence took a serious hit. Later, her mother got clean. She remarried and eventually regained custody of both children. The family moved to Clear Lake City, Texas. It was a suburb outside Houston. Christine enrolled at Clear Lake High School. At first, she had trouble fitting in. But then, something changed. Two well-liked girls, Rachel Colorutis and Tiffany Rowell, decided to befriend her. They helped her with her looks. They helped her feel accepted. Christine's social life improved. Fast. In 2003, She was even voted Miss Irresistible by her classmates. But everything shifted when she started dating 21-year-old Christopher Lee Snyder. Their relationship was intense and unstable. Both of them started using substances. Christine's family didn't approve of Snyder. Neither did her friends. They were worried about his past and his lifestyle, but Christine ignored their concerns. She started drifting away. Her choices became riskier. Her behavior changed. Then came July 18, 2003. Christine and Snyder went to Tiffany Rowell's home in Clear Lake City. Inside the house were Rachel Coloradis, Tiffany's boyfriend Marcus Priscilla, and Marcus's cousin, Adalbert Sanchez. According to Christine, the plan was to take some substances from the house, but things went wrong. An argument broke out between Snyder and Marcus. Tension rose. Suddenly, Snyder pulled out a 9mm pistol. He fired. Christine pulled out a .38 revolver and used it too. All 4 people in the house were hit several times. Rachel tried to reach for help, but Christine struck her with the revolver until she stopped moving. Why would Christine, who was once saved by her friends from loneliness, do this? It seems the reason was a mix of addiction and her unhealthy bond with Snyder. She had become completely tied to him and to their habits. After leaving the house, they made sure not to leave much behind. Snyder even dropped Christine off at her job shortly afterward. She worked the makeup counter at Walgreens. She acted like nothing had happened. The case puzzled investigators. It sat cold for 3 years. Then, in 2006, someone called the police with a tip. They said Christine had admitted to what happened while she was in rehab. Police found her living in a motel room in San Antonio. She was with her husband, Stanley Justin Rott. The room was filled with substances. Both were taken into custody. At first, Christine denied everything, but later, she told investigators what happened. She blamed most of it on Snyder, but she admitted she had taken part too. So, what became of Snyder? Once he found out about the arrest warrant, he ran. He ended up in Greenville, South Carolina. On August 5, 2006, his body was found in a wooded area. He had used too many prescription pills. Christine was charged with 4 counts tied to the incident. Since she was 17 at the time, she could not face the highest legal penalty. In October 2008, she was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. She won't be eligible for parole until she has served 40 years. During her trial, her defense argued that illegal substances and Snyder's control influenced her decisions. But prosecutors presented strong evidence. They included her confession and details about how the people in the house were hurt. Christine appealed the conviction later in 2008. She challenged how the trial was handled, but the court rejected her appeal. As of 2025, Christine is being held at the Christina Melton Crane Unit in Gatesville, Texas. She can request parole in July 2046 when she turns 60.